The Stack, a podcast for IT and MSP professionals, with your host, David Papp.
Welcome to the MSP Stack Podcast. I'm your host, David Papp. We're joined today by Michael Benadiba from MBC Managed IT Services out of Richmond Hill, Ontario, but really Greater Toronto area, the whole GTA. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here, Dave.
Let's talk about, the future of Microsoft's whole modern workplace product, EPWAs, laptops, SaaS. We're finding that many organizations are still not investing in the right locations, but startups, they should do it right. And they should be doing like cloud right out of the gate. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of really amazing technology that's come out today, and particularly in the Microsoft stack is what we've been helping a lot of customers with. And the concept or the technology is that we've been working a lot with is what Microsoft calls modern workplace. And this is basically just leveraging the Microsoft 365 cloud, a public cloud, to give you all the tools and capabilities from a security perspective, collaboration and productivity perspective that you would traditionally only get with a classic, what I like to call a classic on-premise network with an on-prem physical server. You get all those sort of benefits, but it's completely cloud-based. So, the example that we like to talk about with clients is a end user experience with a laptop, for example. And instead of having end users remoting into like a hosted desktop or those types of technologies, we've been having a really great success essentially with just issuing corporately owned laptops to users and connecting them with this modern workplace sort of technology. And what this delivers in a totally cloud sort of native way with no connection to any sort of on-premise server is a super secure corporate laptop that's fully encrypted, that's centrally managed through an MDM solution, which is the Microsoft Endpoint Manager component, and also delivers the ability to have a zero-touch deployment. So now we're living in a world where a new user comes on board, you can just ship them a laptop out of box. They sign in with their Microsoft 365 credential, come back an hour later, the device has fully provisioned itself. All the apps are there, SharePoint, OneDrive, desktop syncing, Outlook, everything is pre-configured and ready to go. And the whole thing is happening, across the internet with no corporate network and no VPN. And that's really huge, especially in the post-COVID world where everyone is working from home. How do you give people an environment where they can work from home in a secure way, while still having control of like whatever endpoints are coming in? And so this is something that we have been spending a lot of time rolling out, and we just love it. It's a super, super great solution.
I love that you brought that up. The typical work from home before was, maybe borrowing a laptop from the company or logging in from your own, your own device, yes. Which was sort of okay, but really people forgot about that. You're extending your security perimeter now, and those devices are not secure, and somebody's kids is going on there and downloading, some questionable material or whatever, and you might even have your VPN connection still open back to the network. So there's this great back door back into the corporate network as we move. And honestly, you mentioned, this since COVID happened, and that's exactly it. I think in a lot of organizations, the reality is people are not going back to work, or there's some kind of hybrid model that's coming in play, and you just got to deal with this. So what does that look like? The interesting thing, though, is from your perspective, I've noticed that over the years, we have this very cyclical thing of, we'll call it the client-server relationship and thick and thin clients. And I think we're again, if you understand where I'm coming from, we're back into that thin part of the rotation where the resourcing power and everything, the provisioning, it's not so important on the device. The device is no longer important for the endpoint. It's because everything's pushed in the cloud. However, you do want to have a good user experience and make sure that people are productive. So you want it to log in quickly, be kind of quick on whatever apps they're using, and they need a really solid internet connection now at their house.
Yes, exactly. And we in Canada, we have two major ISPs, Bell and Rogers. Bell has done really, really well, especially if you're on their new fiber optic network. People have excellent experience. One of the big help desk tickets we deal with is when users are working remotely and things are not performing properly. 9 times out of 10, it's a Rogers cable internet. So that's sort of unfortunate. I think Rogers has a bunch of work to do from a home internet perspective. And they're introducing a similar sort of fiber optic network that Bell has already put in place. So that's really great. But yeah, going back to your point around the whole thin versus thick, this is a big debate. And when we think about, how we keep costs down from an IT perspective, it's all about, well, how many devices and how many desktops am I going to be supporting for a single user, right? And if I have to give someone a hosted desktop, plus I have to make sure that for whatever compliance reasons or corporate security policies we have some sort of control over the endpoint that they're connecting from, then now I'm issuing them a virtual desktop and I'm issuing them some sort of corporate laptop that's secure. And so this is something, and in some cases, they've got a desktop as well.
And
in the extreme case, at the office, there's a desktop. And like what you said, right, we'll sign out a laptop. And these things are breaking down because everyone is working from home all the time now.
Yeah,
Whereas before it was, everyone's got a desktop, but we've got a pool of laptops. Yeah. Or, it's really infrequent that someone works from home. So maybe we don't care if they're connecting from a home computer. Yeah. But now everyone is working from home all the time. And these are actually problems and issues now that, well, where are you connecting from? And what's interesting is that companies that are leveraging Microsoft's cloud, because of voice and video, people have figured out that they don't even need to VPN in a lot of cases. They can just go directly to the Microsoft portal on their home computer. They can access SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Exchange Online. And now what you've got is the situation where, because they're directly accessing the cloud services from a home PC, an unmanaged device, all sorts of corporate data is starting to collect on these home computers. And so this is where the Microsoft Modern Workplace, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and a corporate issued laptop just nibs that in the bud, because it's the same sort of convenience of going direct to the cloud, going directly to the Microsoft portal, bypassing the VPN, doing voice and video directly on the device without a virtual desktop where things perform really well. But now the collection of that corporate data is occurring on a corporately issued, BitLocker encrypted, fully secure, remotely wipeable device instead of a totally unmanaged home computer. And so these are some of the challenges that we're helping customers deal with is controlling that data sprawl with this total remote situation.
You're listening to The Stack.
Thanks to cybersecurity leader ESET for sponsoring the podcast. ESET delivers award-winning cybersecurity technology to protect all aspects of your digital life with cutting-edge expertise and advanced machine learning to secure Windows, Mac OS, and Android devices. ESET bundles antivirus, anti-spyware, device control, web filtering, two-way firewall, anti-spam, remote management, and two-factor authentication solutions, and is a recognized leader in home and business cybersecurity solutions.
What's in your stack?
And then I would imagine that throughout this, you still want to have some form of hardware rotation cycling in place, where you refresh your gear that's out in the field now. And how far do you take it? Like, depending on the organization, are we also supporting the devices? Do they have dual monitors and a dock and a printer? And what kind of devices are you also supporting in addition to that laptop, but that you don't have access to? So now it has to be something that you're really not going to deploy a technician on site to somebody's home, generally speaking. And you need to be able to support those devices very easily in a remote fashion.
Yes.
But yet they're on some kind of home network that you probably don't have access to, with a home router and home Wi-Fi and all those other fun things.
Yeah, and that is definitely challenging as well. And with some of our clients that are really adopting the laptop piece, what we've done is we've converted their whole office to a dual monitor with a standard docking station. And in some cases, for VIPs or important users, we've reproduced the exact same office setup at their home office. So dock, multi-monitor, whatever that mouse and keyboard it is that they want to use. And so standardization from that perspective is really important. And yeah, again, right, it's like when we're taking tickets for home networks where it's just, you're dealing with a Rogers router, a Bell router. In many cases, where we have the most amount of issues is where those docking stations are on Wi-Fi and they're not hardwired. And so a lot of the work that we do with our clients is recommending, well, this is the stack that you need at home. You should be in an office environment, like a desk. Ideally your cable modem or your router is right beside you. And if not, you've got some sort of Cat6 cable throughout the house, and you can hardwire your dock, or you can hardwire your laptop if you're going to be sitting working 8 hours a day, especially with voice and video. And so those are all the new challenges that have come up. In many cases, we have had to dispatch to people's homes. And I think, masking and things like that was a big thing when sort of the pandemic was just underway. Now, and in many situations, depending on the situation, we might have been hesitant to do that dispatch. But what we're finding now is that it is becoming more common to actually have to go on site and do a dispatch at a home. So that's a whole new dimension that we never had to deal with.
Yeah. There's a lot more travel time and preparation that comes into play with your remote technicians who have to do that now. So kind of forecasting in a crystal ball on the whole Microsoft topic, what do you feel is, where do you think this modern workplace is headed? What's the kind of the next thing that we might begin to see or still needs to be worked out, like they have to work out the kinks?
Yeah, well, one technology that's really exciting, going back to your whole comment about going in this cyclical thick versus thin and thick versus thin, and like you say, where we're at right now is everything's in the cloud, but we still are dependent on a fair amount of horsepower on the local computer to be able to render things. And certainly with voice and video, just with voice and video, you need that local horsepower. And a lot of people who did embrace a fully thin environment where you're running a virtual desktop like an RDP or a Citrix are realizing that is a real hindrance because Zoom and Teams and all these apps literally do not run well in those environments. And so I think where this is going is moving back towards more reliance on a more powerful laptop. And I think one technology that is really exciting is this enterprise progressive web application technology that Microsoft has been doing a lot of work on, which essentially allows you to run a web app, but Microsoft has exposed more direct access to the GPU and other hardware components. So now you can actually develop a web app that has more direct access to the physical resources of the device. And so, whereas before, you'd have to really sort of work within the confines of the browser. Now you can still sort of develop that similar type of browser-based app, but it can tap way deeper into the OS and into the hardware. So we're in a situation now where you can simulate like a Win32 or a locally installed app way better than you could at any point in the past. And so that's really exciting because it's the best of both worlds. Nothing to deploy, nothing to push except a URL to the end user, but it's a full-blown, the idea is a full-blown desktop app that's just browser-based. And so that, I think, is something that is a very promising technology. Whether all the app vendors start adopting it is yet to be seen. So yeah.
Love it. So I'd love to end my podcast with putting you on the spot with just what's one quick little power tip, a piece of advice that you would give to people, like if they completely didn't understand or ignored everything that you talked about so far, what's that one thing that you want them to walk away with as a piece of advice?
Yeah, well, I guess a big thing is on modern workplace is going to be really thinking about data sprawl. And now that everyone's working from home, where is your data going? And do you have control of your data? And are you aware of how it's being collected on home computers and and personally owned laptops and things like that? And is that an acceptable risk? Because, depending on the business, I mean, we primarily target SMBs. In certain verticals that we target, that's an acceptable risk. The data is not very sensitive. In other verticals that we work with, financial services, banking, where it's more of a regulated sort of industry, that is unacceptable. And so there's consideration that has to be taken into account. And that's where some of these technologies really can help mitigate those risks and help you achieve that type of compliance when it comes to data. And then in general, and this is a little off topic, I always like to end these types of conversations with one sort of easy to implement security tip. And that would be on password reuse. When we think about the corporate environment, then one of the most important things that you can do to help keep yourself safe is never reuse your corporate password anywhere else.
I'll take that a step further. Multi-factor authentication, people, come on. It's got to be a reality now.
Not for sure.
That way, just in case that password gets reused or leaked or whatever, or recorded, at least you minimize the impact, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so true. So true. I love your comment on the data sprawl, though. I don't think people truly appreciate that. Not just that, but it's the backup of that data and where does it even exist? Like, let's say something catastrophic happened to your cloud implementation. What could you do? How could you reconstruct it?
For sure.
Yeah. Right on. Well, thank you very much, Michael. That was fantastic, and appreciate having you on the show.
Yeah, it was great to be here, and I hope you invite me back again in the future. Love to chat with you as well.
You bet. Sounds great. Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the MSP Stack Podcast. Remember, if you liked it, hit thumbs up. If you didn't like it, hit thumbs down twice. If you'd like to be on the show, head on over to the MSPstack.com and click on the Be a Guest button. The Stack is made possible through the generous support of MSP Corp. What's in your stack?